Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. As you know, the past 2 days have been mainly comprised of talking about this inept offense, the defense falling apart, Adoree Jackson, Logan Ryan dropping interceptions, how bad this team really is right now, losing to a Falcons team that was without their top cornerback and had the worst defense statistically in the NFL, allowing 40 points per game. We only managed 14. But today's episode, we just want to rant. We want to rant about Jason Garrett. We want to rant about how inept his offense is in terms of the schematics, and what Saquon Barkley even said yesterday was just appalling in terms of believing in the scheme, and also, ranging from, Dave Gettleman and just a multitude of different factors that's playing a part in the demise of this franchise currently. We just want to rant about it, and especially the offensive line, because while some might say the offensive line is playing better than expected, they are still awful. And I think people need to realize that they're still really, really bad, even though they're not as bad as we thought they were. They're not 32nd, maybe they're 27th. You know what I mean? They're still a really bad unit, guys. Let's not give them any more credit than they deserve, because it comes down to drafting, resource allocation. We want to talk about that. Dave Gettleman and what he's done to really try and help this offensive line. He's more or less put it in an even worse spot than it was before, with the exception of left tackle, which I think is finally coming around. But Anthony, before we dive into all of these different topics, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing real good. Of course, I am still frustrated over the Giants being 0-3, over the way that they lost on Sunday, especially since I flew up there to go watch that game, hang out with Alex. Still had a great time hanging out with Alex, but man, obviously it would have been a whole lot better if the Giants got a win for Eli, right? But they weren't able to do that, and we're going to pretty much rant about that endlessly, about how the Giants have really just put themselves into a corner where they can't really claw their way out of this. They painted themselves into a corner. I don't see the out for the Giants unless they make wholesale changes immediately. Of course, you talk about the offensive line. The offensive line is a catastrophe, and it's not looking like it's going to improve anytime soon because the Giants had multiple opportunities this offseason to make some moves and improve the offensive line. They chose not to. They have invested a lot of money and resources into the line in the years prior, but it hasn't amounted to much. I think, the only investment that I can feel fully confident in that is a success, and even then, I don't know if I'm fully confident, is Andrew Thomas. I feel pretty confident in him, but along the rest of the offensive line, you look at the right guard position, 2018 second round pick, Will Hernandez. How confident do I feel in him? He hasn't been playing too well. We made a couple of trades right before this season started for Ben Bredeson and for Billy Price. Neither one of them has looked to be all that great. We knew that we were trading for backup players at that point, but they're starting now, and that says something about the Giants' offensive line depth and just the situation that we're in, and again, how they painted themselves into a corner. So yeah, plenty to rant about, plenty to be frustrated about. I'm sure you guys are going to rant plenty in the comment section below. I'll be right down there ranting with you. Totally feel that pain and energy. So I guess let's get into it, Alex. I'm ready to get some things off my chest.
Yeah, I got a lot to get off my chest, guys, and it just starts with anger, man. I know a lot of people are feeling the same way. We want to express these emotions because they're on all of our minds. What is going on with the offensive line? And the one thing that really haunts me, the one thing that really gets on my nerves is that we're seeing Daniel Jones take the necessary steps forward to be a good quarterback. We're seeing him get through his progressions. We're seeing him protect the football. I know he had a fumble against the Falcons, but it was Nate Solder gave up just an outside rush, speed rush on the outside. It was just instantaneous pressure on Daniel Jones. He wasn't even looking. He's really turning towards his blind side more and trying to get the ball out because he trusts Andrew Thomas now. He's trying to kind of focusing on moving towards him and away from Nate Solder. But, Daniel Jones is taking the necessary steps forward to be a good quarterback, yet the rest of the team is degrading, is regressing in their talents, and that's a big problem for me. Last year, defense, top 5 unit, looking really strong, really good. This year, they're taking steps backward. They're dropping interceptions. They're missing opportunities for turnovers. It's just not coming together as we need it to. At the end of the day, the Giants, really needed those guys to step up and really round out that defensive unit to make them a strong feature on this team. And they needed the receivers to create more separation. They needed the offensive line to take a step forward. I know the injuries have hurt them with Shane Lemieux and Nick Gates, but at the end of the day, we needed these guys to come together. Otherwise, the progression and development of Daniel Jones is irrelevant. It doesn't matter how well he plays because the Giants, and after this season, they have no choice but to move on from Dave Gettleman, hire a new general manager, and then who knows what he's going to do with those 2 first-round picks. He could go with another quarterback, reset the rookie window. Now we have to reset the entire thing. We have to start over. You have to wait for that quarterback to get his feet under him. Like the Jets are trying to do with Zach Wilson. You look at Trey Lance and Justin Fields. The rookie quarterbacks have a tough time sometimes. adapting to the NFL. Even Trevor Lawrence is having a tough time as well. So the Giants are going to have to restart that entire, just progression and development. And now it really puts the entire team and all those contracts in a state of flux. So it's really unfortunate the Giants are having to witness the progression of Daniel Jones and the regression of their entire team around him and their coaching staff, the decision they're making from the head coaching position to the defensive coordinator to the offensive coordinators. A lot of problems going on all around, Anthony. And I think that might be one of the more demoralizing things. How are you feeling about Daniel Jones, how he's looking so far, and how the team around him is performing?
Yeah, so I feel really bad for Daniel Jones, honestly, because he does look pretty good. He's played good football through 3 games. He hasn't played elite football. He doesn't look like a surefire franchise quarterback, but he's had moments where he does look like that. And he's had moments where he doesn't look like that, of course. But he has played very good football through 3 weeks, especially that week 2 performance was a very good game, very clean game. This is 2 weeks now in a row with no turnovers. And that was the thing. We said this season rests right on Daniel Jones' shoulders. If he can play well, if Daniel Jones can play some good football and keep the ball clean, the Giants will be a good team. Well, he's done exactly that, and we're still not a good team. So obviously, there's a lot more issues than just the quarterback position. There's some deep-seated issues in the coaching staff and the player personnel and management. There's a lot going wrong with this team right now, and the team around him, honestly, is why we're 0-3. Daniel Jones is not the reason that we're 0-3. I mean, he's not necessarily playing so well that we should be 3-0, but he's not playing 0-3 football. Daniel Jones is playing some decent football. He really is. He's making good reads. He's making good throws. He's thrown some really beautiful deep passes. But the thing is, he's only thrown like 2 per game, right? He's thrown 2 against the Falcons, 2 against Washington. 1 was a completion for a touchdown against Washington. 1 was a completion to CJ Board against the Falcons. And the other 2 were incomplete. He's just not slinging the ball deep. Part of that is because Jason Garrett's probably not letting him. If you watch the offensive scheme, there's really not a lot of vertical route concepts for him to take advantage of. But also, you could probably place a little bit of the blame on Daniel Jones' shoulders. You can say he needs to get a little more aggressive. Maybe call some audibles at the line of scrimmage that do send some players on some go routes. I know that is actually how they scored on the touchdown to Darius Slayton in week 2. Daniel Jones called a go route. He actually audibled at the line of scrimmage. So need to see more of that from Daniel Jones, honestly. Need to see him take matters into his own hands. Say, screw you, Jason Garrett. You suck. Your scheme sucks. No one believes in it. Saquon Barkley just said they're still trying to learn how to believe in the scheme. If they don't believe in the scheme now, week 3, the
That
scheme has
is
been in place since week 1 of
crazy
last
to
year.
me. They don't believe in
Bizarre
it.
quote. I couldn't believe that quote. He doesn't even believe in the scheme. Nobody believes in the scheme. So then why are we still running this scheme? All right, it's time for the Giants to make a change, honestly, because especially with Daniel Jones actually playing good football, we need someone to try and unlock that, try and unlock a franchise quarterback. He's playing like he has that potential, but something's stopping him from reaching it. So they need to make a change. Jason Garrett can't keep calling these plays and holding him back. In my opinion, it's time for the Giants to move on from Jason Garrett and allow Freddie Kitchens to take over for now. If you remember, back in 2018, Baker Mayfield through 8 weeks with Todd Haley was averaging 6.8 yards per attempt. 6.8? That's horrible. Then they fire Todd Haley. Freddie Kitchens comes in. His yards per attempt go over 9 yards per attempt, and he starts balling out. Baker Mayfield looks awesome, and now here he is years later. He's the franchise quarterback of the Browns, and they're very comfortable with him. They've got a whole new regime in there. Freddie Kitchens wasn't fit to be a head coach, but he is a good offensive coordinator, and he runs a very vertical passing attack because he learned it from Bruce Arians, who we all know is the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with arguably the most vertical passing attack in the NFL. It's a Bruce Arians style offense. Wouldn't you love to see the Giants run some concepts that you see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers running every Sunday? Wouldn't you love to see that taking advantage of guys like Kenny Golladay, guys like Sterling Shepard downfield? Oh my God, I would love that. So let's see Freddie Kitchens. Let's give him a chance. Clearly, it's not working with Jason Garrett. I don't know why the Giants haven't realized that yet, but Saquon Barkley going on the podium and saying we're still learning to believe in the scheme, that should tell everybody everything they need to know about Jason Garrett and his scheme, and it should tell the Giants that it's time to make a change.
And speaking of throwing the ball downfield, the Giants and Daniel Jones attempts, deep passes at the bottom of the league. They're in like one of the bottom percentiles in the league in actually attempting deep passes, but he's in one of the top percentiles in completion rate in deep passes. So that tells you a lot. Like Daniel Jones is a good deep ball thrower. We know this, right? We know DJ can throw the ball deep. We know he's pretty accurate when doing so. That pass to CJ Board in the first half on Sunday was a good testament that he can put the ball in the right place and make reserve receivers look even better because that ball has to be perfect for guys to catch that. He had one to Colin Johnson that was out of bounds, but I think kind of the MetLife wind got a hold of it. But I will say that the scheme is increasingly becoming more disappointing week in and week out. And the reason is you look over at Sean McVay, you look over at Kyle Shanahan, and let's take a look at what they do that makes them so much better than Jason Garrett, right? First and foremost, the pre-snap motion for Kyle Shanahan and Anthony, we were talking about this while watching the Packers in San Francisco game. Kyle Shanahan's unit, they use pre-snap motion more than any other team. The concept behind it is that every time you use pre-snap motion, you force 4 defenders to move at once, right? You're forcing defenders to move. And that alone forces defenses to compensate, overcompensate. Maybe they're confused. It creates a lot of havoc for defenses. And it also gives a lot of information to the quarterback, right? Is it man coverage? Is it zone coverage? Now, how can you blend those together to formulate a good unit? Now, look over at Sean McVay's offense, right? There was one play that they ran on Sunday that really stood out to me, and it was really it was a 4-by-1 crossing concept, right? So it was man coverage, and opposing defenses, guys, love to run man coverage against the Giants because they know cover one, we're running defense, we're running run stopping formation. If we can stop the run, force Daniel Jones to throw the ball, they can't do it because the route concepts are garbage and they don't have enough separation. Now, this is what you have to do if you're Jason Garrett, right? You run the 4-by-1 concept. You have 4 receivers on the left side. You have 1 tight end on the right side. And you do this exactly. You use pre-snap motion to figure out if it's man or zone. If it's man coverage, you run a crossing concept. And what does that do in man coverage? It drags defensive backs away from their assigned positions. So if you have one guy on the right side of the field playing man coverage and he's running a crossing route, you pull a defensive back, you pull safeties out of that zone, and you run Sterling Shepard, Kadarius Toney on crossing routes, which are some of your best shallow route runners across the formation into that space now, right? You're playing man coverage, so they're trailing behind you. Now you have all of this space, open space to work with. Jason Garrett's biggest flaw is, well, aside from the other many different things, lack of pre-snap motion, lack of route concepts, and lack of using their speed of their receivers and actual strengths of their players, is getting guys into open space, right? He bunches receivers. Their routes are all ending within 5 yards of each other. It makes no sense. There's so much space on a football field. Why is he not using all of it? That's my biggest concern. And then you look at Sean McVay. How does he use Cooper Kupp? He uses Robert Woods, some of his better guys, as decoys, rub routes, getting his guys open and really crossing them. If you have Cooper Kupp, you're in a 3-by-2 formation. You have 3 receivers on the left side. You have Cooper Kupp on the outside. You have two receivers on the interior. You have those 2 guys blocking. You have Cooper Kupp, who's actually running a quick slant, but it's actually a whip route. So that receiver, that cornerback thinks, oh, I gotta bolt inside. So he bolts inside, but it's actually a decoy. So he's running a whip route going back to the boundary. That cornerback is now stuck behind those guys blocking, or really just running the 9 routes up the field. They're in the end. This is a red zone scenario. And it really, you open up Cooper Kupp for this touchdown. This is what we saw. This is what he did, and why Cooper Kupp's my number 1 receiver in fantasy. He's the number 1 receiver in fantasy football right now because Sean McVay knows how to design plays to maximize his players' strengths. Kenny Golladay, why is he running slants all game long? Why is he running hooks, curls, and slants? He should be running 9 routes. He should be running stop and go up the sideline. He should be doing that over and over and over again until the defense on the other side of the field, you have Daniel Jones looking off that safety and giving him an opportunity in 50-50 chances. They did it one time in the red zone, and you know what happened? He drew a pass interference, so we scored the next play because Saquon Barkley ran it in from the 1. That is what happens. This is why I don't trust Jason Garrett, because I'm an amateur, guys, and I'm pointing out why the hell this guy is not good, because you look at some of the better coordinators in the league, and they're doing things to create space for their players, doing things to operate in more utilities to help the receivers attack their strengths and not expose their weaknesses. You know what I mean? This is clear-cut stuff, which is why I'm starting to think that Jason Garrett actually might be an imposter. I don't think he actually wants to win here, and why Saquon Barkley had the audacity to go out and say, we have to start believing in the scheme, because the players, he inadvertently said, we don't even believe that the scheme is good. And that is what really concerns me. The players don't even want to buy into it. So why the hell should we?
Yeah, and another thing there, I want to just point out, you're mentioning how the best offensive coordinators in the league play to the player's strengths, right? Well, also what they do is they make plays so easy that I could convert the touchdown. That play to Cooper Kupp, I could have ran that in. Alex could have caught that touchdown pass. Any one of you listening to this could have caught that, because there wasn't a guy within 10 yards of Cooper Kupp, and he was on the 1 yard line. Like, there was no one near him. He got him that wide open. What he did, he put the bunch receiver set on the left side, and he had the point receiver and the inside receiver both run slant routes, and then Cooper Kupp just walks into the flat, no one around him. Like, you cannot guard that. And that's what the best offensive coordinators do. They know how to make their scheme and build some plays that make things extremely easy, not just playing to the strengths, right? Because Kenny Galladay's strength really is going up there and making 50-50 balls. But you don't have to play to that strength, because making 50-50 balls is a 50% chance of converting. But for a play like that to Cooper Kupp, you have like a 95% chance of converting that play when he is that wide open on the 1 yard line. It is literally as easy as catching the snap and throwing the ball anywhere in that vicinity, and Cooper Kupp is going to be there to catch
And
it
they
because
know
he's
it's going to
that
go to
wide
him
open.
too.
Exactly. They know
It's going to him. That's the
exactly
worst
who it's
part.
going to. They just can't defend it. And that's because Sean McVay is a genius, and he is one of the best offensive coordinators in the NFL. But the Giants are looking at their offensive scheme and clearly not looking around the league at other offensive schemes. They're not looking at the 49ers, the Packers, the Rams, the Buccaneers. They're not looking at any of that and saying, how do we become more like that? They're looking at their scheme and saying, let's see how we can make this a little bit better. They're not even looking outside. Jason Garrett's scheme looks nothing like any of those other coordinators I just mentioned. McVay, LaFleur, none of them. Looks nothing like that, because it looks like it's from 2004. As Alex keeps mentioning, keeps hitting on this one. This is a 2004 Norv Turner scheme. Why the hell in 2021 are the Giants running that scheme? Explain that to me. Anyone. I can't wrap my head around it.
Defenses have already figured it out. They've already figured it out. That's the point. And they don't even have the personnel to be running it.
Have to try to figure that out, though, because it's like really, you just look at it and there's nothing confusing about it. They line up and they run stick concepts. There's no motion, as you're mentioning, Alex. There's nothing where you're creating space and pockets of zone defenses post snap, as we keep hitting on. There's just nothing creative about this offense. It's vanilla, and it really looks like it's been lost from, or it was pulled out of last decade, or actually the decade before that, because we're in the 2020s now. This is from 2 decades ago, this offense. This is ridiculous. Seriously, go ahead, guys. I know it's kind of tough because we're Giants fans, so we just want to watch Giants football. Just go watch some other games. Watch some film from teams around the league.
I'm
Look
enjoying
at
them
what
a
they're
lot more
doing
lately.
offensively. Yeah, it's way more fun to watch the 49ers. The 49ers are so fun to watch because they're just so creative and so smart, and everything they do is just, I'm a Kyle Shanahan, Stan, whatever. I love that guy. Everything that he does is perfect to me. If it were up to me, I would trade the next 2 first-round picks and the 3 first-round picks after that just for Kyle Shanahan, because you can trade for coaches in the NFL. That would never happen because there's no way they would ever trade Shanahan, but that's what I would do, because I am sick and tired of watching this vanilla offense from Jason Garrett, and the Giants should feel sick and tired of it too. I'm sure Daniel Jones is sick and tired of playing in it. It's time for the Giants to make a change immediately. I'm going to keep saying that over and over until the Giants finally decide to do something about it.
Right. And I want to make a couple more points here. Why is it the Norv Turner offense? Usually the Norv Turner 2004 offense has a couple things that the Giants have right now, and it's clear because they made these signings specifically, right? You have a big possession receiver. That's Kenny Galladay. You have a scat back. That's Saquon Barkley. You have an inside zone bruiser, Devontae Booker. You have an athletic tight end, Evan Ingram. That is really what Norv Turner's offense is all about. And when you're looking at what Jason Garrett is trying to do, a big portion of it revolves around the offensive line, right? That entire offense needs a good offensive line to function. And that leads us to one of the biggest points of the day. Dave Gettleman's inept trying to build this offensive line. He came here and his resume says, I'm good at building offensive lines. He's gotten Trey Turner in the past. He's gotten a lot of really, really good players, and Taylor Moton, Andrew Norwell, some really good players. And when we're talking about Dave Gettleman's tenure with the Giants, it's the exact opposite, guys. He hit now Nick Gates, but they've been moving Nick Gates around since the day he became an established player here. He's never had a season where he's been able to play one spot. They've been moving around to right tackle, moving him to right guard, moving him to center, keep him at the same spot. Don't fix what's not broken. They're always trying to supplement weaknesses with strengths and then turning their strengths into weaknesses. And then you have Billy Price, who's a turnstile. Then you have Nick Gates, who's getting injured because he can't play left guard well. He never played it in his life. Stick to your guns, man. Don't create weaknesses, or don't create weaknesses where there were strengths. That's what the Giants keep doing to themselves. It's ridiculous. And we said it before the game. We're like, why are they doing this? Keep him there, keep Bredesen at left guard, and keep Nick Gates at center. It's not worth it. And then, of course, the first half, Nick Gates gets injured. He's done for the year. So it's like they just keep putting themselves in a position where they're only going to be hurting themselves if they keep making these mistakes. Now I just can't give Dave Gettleman another year to draft. He cannot be drafting next year. Andrew Thomas, he's coming along fine, but that's, Rob Sales doing a tremendous job getting the most out of this offensive line. He is a good coach. He is a good coach because the people that are saying that this offensive line is playing well, they're not playing well. They're just playing better than we thought. And Rob Sale was the main reason because of that. And, what he's done with that group, what he's doing with Andrew Thomas is phenomenal. You just have to realize that the talent that we have in the offensive line is awful. It's god awful. We just traded for Billy Price, who the Cincinnati Bengals, and they have a terrible offensive line. They were willing to give up Billy Price. Keep in mind how bad that really sounds. Now, he had a better game last week, but he's still a below average player by all accounts. Nate Solder, below average. Will Hernandez, maybe average. Ben Bredesen has been an absolute turnstile to a left guard. Andrew Thomas has been our only saving grace so far. And I think that's the only reason Daniel Jones has any time in the pocket at all. So Dave Gettleman needs to go. He cannot be trusted with building this offensive line any longer. We need legitimate talent evaluators. The fact they didn't take a chance on Trey Smith in the 6th round is ridiculous over the running back. What's his name? What's his name again? Running back out of Arizona, Gary Brightwell. Why Gary Brightwell? Then they bench Devontae Booker last game as a healthy scratch. What is going on, man? Why are you signing Devontae Booker to a 2-year, $6 million contract to bench him and then start Gary Brightwell? It makes no legitimate sense to me. It makes no logical sense to me. And then something that Eli and Peyton said yesterday on the Monday night stream was really, really interesting. And I think the Giants could benefit off this. They need to be playing more high up-tempo football and using more up-tempo, like get to the line of scrimmage quickly, snap the ball, and run the up-tempo offense. That's what they did against Washington in week 2, the first drive of the game. Up-tempo offense, and it worked to perfection because they kept the defense on their toes. The defense didn't know what was coming, and they really did a good job. The thing is, Joe Judge wants to run a conservative game where they control the clock, they run the football, and they ground and pound. That's not the way the Giants are going to win games. They're going to win games by up-tempo, scoring, and then getting their defense on the field and hopefully just repeating. They need to just be running up-tempo, fast-paced offense every single drive, as long as they can until the guys get fatigued. And then you obviously got to slow it down a little bit. But at the end of the day, the problem is Joe Judge is a conservative coach, and the Giants need to be running an up-tempo scheme and offense, and they need to be handing over play-calling duties to Freddie Kitchens. Now, I do believe that Jason Garrett will end up giving up play-calling duties at some time this year. I think Freddie Kitchens will end up calling plays. They will not fire Jason Garrett. They will just make him give up plays. That is what is going to happen. The problem is the scheme is going to stay the same. They cannot change the scheme in the middle of the season, the terminology. And Payton was saying it's really hard. Matthew Stafford even said during the stream, it's really hard to change schemes, and it's not because of learning a new one. It's because of forgetting the old one. Because certain things mean different things. If you're calling red 22, maybe red means a strong side run in this one, but in the next one it means a weak side or a counter. You don't know. So the problem is you can't change the scheme in the middle of the year. The terminology, the route concepts, everything has to stay the same for Daniel Jones, but just the play calling and the flow of the game is what's going to be different under Freddie Kitchens. That's what we're really hoping for. And we've seen they have some decent plays in the playbook. They just don't use them enough, and they don't use their players to their strengths, Anthony. I'm sorry for the long rant, but I just got a lot off my chest. I just can't sometimes with this team.
It's all right. And really what you're saying there with Freddie Kitchens is like, yeah, we do see some of those like vertical route concepts in the playbook, but they're run once every 3 weeks. Like the Mills concept that the Giants scored on. I did that film breakdown where they didn't score on how Darius Slayton got so wide open on that touchdown pass that he dropped. Oh, that was a Mills concept, and it was a really great route concept. It's a pretty basic route concept, but the Giants ran that against the coverage, the look that they had. It was the perfect call against that coverage, and it got him wide open. So those concepts are in this playbook. The Yankee concept that the Giants scored on in week 1 of last year that they ran, I think, once again for the rest of the season. They ran it in week 1, and I think we saw it again in week 10 and never again. So they have these vertical route concepts in their playbook. They're just not being utilized. They know how to do them. They're just not. So Freddie Kitchens, I believe, would go in there and call plays like that way more frequently, considering that he is from that Bruce Arians, brain trust, right? Like he learned from Bruce Arians and knows how to utilize vertical route concepts. So when we're talking about unlocking this next part of Daniel Jones and establishing him as that franchise quarterback, we need someone to get him to sling the football, be more aggressive, get more up tempo, and put him in position to succeed, because right now he's not in a position to succeed. So with Jason Garrett there, it's not going to get any better, I don't think. I know it got better in week 2, but then it instantly reverted back to horrible, horrible offense in week 3. Week 2, we saw a bunch of RPOs. The read option game was strong. The RPOs were great because a lot of people don't realize the RPOs like really just simplify everything, because
They
it
need to
sucks
keep
in those
building on that.
linebackers and creates ginormous passing windows for a quarterback. So those were great for Daniel Jones, who we have criticized in the past for being somewhat of a one-read quarterback. Well, when you're doing an RPO, you have one read, and it is either a completion or a handoff. So that really simplifies things for Daniel Jones. But in week 3, we didn't see any RPOs. We didn't even see any read options. There was nothing. There was no creativity and nothing that actually benefited Daniel Jones. It was just go out there and try and make the most of it. But that's not always the easiest thing to do for a quarterback when your offensive line is terrible. Half of your playmakers are hobbled with injuries. Everything's a mess right now, and the Giants have to make wholesale changes. I think that's the page that all Giants fans are on right now. There maybe is a couple who aren't blaming Jason Garrett, but it seems like overwhelmingly we're all recognizing who the main problems are: Jason Garrett, Dave Gettleman, and I think people are starting to jump off of that Joe Judge bandwagon. I have to stay on it just because, I have this gavel down here and I'm Mr. Joe Judge fan club and everything. So I have to continue to root for him. Otherwise, I'm going to look like a major clown. So I already do, because he looks so bad through 3 weeks. But I hope he turns it around. I want to see Joe Judge succeed. I want to see him become what we hoped he could become. But right now, it just doesn't look like it's panning out. Everything looks really bleak and really unexciting. And this is a really tough time to be a Giants fan.
Yep, it's true, guys, but just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, BetQL. You want to take advantage of your sportsbook, you need to download BetQL right now, the only app you need to make smart bets. Their best bet computer model scans over 350K unique bets per year to give you a best bet recommendation for every game across all major sports, and gives you the reasoning behind why you should place the bet. Their model covers everything from spreads, over and unders, and player prop bets. Of course, you can hear the firefighter outside of my truck is also giving you a sign, a thumbs up right now, a honk, a couple of honks, a couple sirens that you should go and get this product right now. Don't want to use the model and prefer to do the research yourself? BetQL has all the necessary tools for your research needs. There is sharp data so you can see what the pros are backing, team summaries, highlights, previous success against the spread and the over-under, and the team lineup, breaking news, and injury status updates before the games actually commence. Head to the App Store or Google Store right now to download BetQL. You can also head to try.betql.com/fireside to go started now. Enter the discount code Fireside at payment checkout for 25% off any of their subscription offerings. You can find all of this information in the description of this video on YouTube. Make sure to check out their BetMGM offer in the description in order to receive a free year of BetQL. You will not be disappointed. A great service here, and make sure to go check it out. I promise, I've been using it as well, and it's been doing really, really good stuff for my psyche. A little bit of money on the side is nice to smooth over the Giants' losses. I promise you that. But my friends, thank you for tuning in to Fireside Giants. Make sure to subscribe below on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. I hope you enjoyed the rants. Probably more coming soon. I got a lot of anger, a lot of frustration to get out these days, and this is a good place to do it. So also, if you want to leave us voicemails with your frustration, your anger, I'd love to feature them in upcoming videos, so make sure to do that as well. Hopefully you have a fantastic week. Let's go get them on next Sunday.